Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to another episode of Somatic Navigation. And just kind of to go over a little bit of what we've done this week, recap everything. We talked a lot about fascia, as always, and intuitive movement. Being able to just let your body move in the way that it wants to move. And we were talking a little bit more about the throat chakra and how it's associated with blue, and how it's also associated with the kidneys and the bladder. And it's also associated with fear and the want to do something but can't, and kind of all of this category. So we also talked a little bit about how pathogens and things get into your body, and how that changes us, and how those patterns kind of keep repeating until we end up getting to a place where we no longer, where we've either built up enough antibodies, or built enough, released enough of the tissue that it no longer carries that memory and needs to hold on to that pattern in your body anymore. So again, like if you're just feeling into feeling fear, we talked about you might be a little bit more guarded. And earlier in the week, when I was talking about fear and being guarded, I was guarding more of my right side or my left side. Right now, I feel like I need to guard my right side a little bit more. Not entirely sure. I'll probably have to figure that out either why it shifted. It could have been, again, we talked a little bit about how your body is kind of split in half. Your left side's more feminine, it's more of the intuitive things, it's more of the relationships and money, whereas like your right side's more masculine, more on the professional side and career, so things along those lines. So kind of feeling into that a little bit. So maybe I'm trying to protect my career stuff a little bit more today than I was earlier. And so how all of this kind of affects you. We also talked a little bit about the Psoas muscle, and it's being one of your hip flexors, and it holds a lot of things like fight, flight, freeze, and how when you're sitting down a lot, it makes you a little bit more vulnerable to that fight, flight, freeze kind of stuff getting stored in your body, because you're not moving it anywhere. Like it's just getting, that muscle when you sit is just being shortened, and when it's shortened, it isn't able to move as much as it wants to, and so that can also increase kind of like the risk of getting these emotions, these events, this trauma kind of stored in your body. So like repetitive movement, for instance, like look at athletes or something, like they do the same movements over and over and over and over and over and over, just like even just driving, like you're doing the same motions over and over and over. Being in the passenger side versus the driver's seat also will have an effect on your body. Sitting in the same chair in the same way all the time can also affect your body and put these patterns into your body that can be exacerbated, especially when you introduce the things that are kind of harmful to your body in a way. Like it's adding in that emotional trauma, those kind of things. So like going back to the fear. Fear also is kind of one of those things that can put you into that fight, flight, freeze mode and get your adrenalines pumping, and add to that psoas tightness. So so you might also think about the different pulse points that might involve. So we've talked about how the first pulse point on your left hand, and then attach that to your forehead. That is one of the red pulse points. The red pulse points are for things that are kind of related to that root chakra. We mentioned that a little bit this week, the foundational stuff. And it also, there's another point, and it's on your right hand. It's that third point. So kind of feeling into that. I normally notice it a little bit more when I'm using my right hand. I think it's probably also because fear is on the same hand. So fear and that paralyzed will is also that third point on your left hand. and then putting that to your forehead, again, connecting mind, body, and helping your body process this stuff. So also allowing your body to be more free in movement also helps you like let go and protect yourself from other pathogens that would like to come into your body. It makes you less receptive when you have more movement. Well, sometimes you can have too much movement in a joint, but we'll talk about that later. But having more movement in places that should have more movement is also a thing. So when you have more movement and your body's moving the way it's supposed to, then everything feels better. Your cerebral spinal fluid is able to go from your head down to your tailbone, your sacrum, and through your that spinal column, that your meninges, and so all of your nerves and stuff are lubricated by the cerebral spinal fluid. And when that's feeling really good, your head's feeling really good, all of that central nervous system's feeling good. So everything kind of just flows together. And so as you move better, you'll feel better. And again, you don't always have to start in the same positions that I do, and you don't have to always stand. I know I normally do in these videos. You can just lay in your bed and do this. And like literally kind of pushing against something, and it might be like, oh, I feel like if I push my shoulder in a little bit farther into the bed, I feel something a little bit different. Or I'm noticing that if I turn this way, I can feel a real stretch and get some of those muscles that are up the spine that are a little tight for whatever reason, whatever has kind of made them that way. And so kind of just feeling those kind of things out, and what like kind of why they got there, and also giving your body space to be able to do the movements that you want. So not necessarily literally having space, because sometimes it is good to be in an area where you can push on things, like be in a smaller confined type area. Like sometimes I'll try to lean up against something as like I be able to push on a couple of sides, so whether that's the floor and the wall or something like that, just to be able to get the tension that I want on it from the direction that I want it. And again, I'm just listening to my body and seeing how my body wants to move. If I want to move my arm up here, do I want to keep following it? Do I want to let it go behind my head? Do I want it to, and this isn't like conscious choices, like I'm not just, like I'm literally just letting, like if I just stand here and I'm letting my body do whatever it wants, like my hand wants to open up and wants to do this, and I'm feeling the muscles in my back and my lat in particularly seems to be activated. It's kind of pulling my shoulder down and in, and those rotator cuff muscles are involved, and whatever that was, it just felt like it released. My shoulder feels a little activated. I actually feel like it just let something go, and now I'm feeling a little bit of pain right here in one of my rotator cuff muscles. So now that I've got pain there, maybe I might feel into it a little bit more. Like feeling across my body actually feels really good to stretch right here, and then going up, I just heard a click in my shoulder, and it felt like it was really helpful. I'm noticing I'm getting a lot of tension right here in my pec muscles, and then I'm noticing as my hand is coming out here that like it feels like the fascia is just really tight, and I'm just noticing these different lines, particularly right through here in my bicep, and how that changes. And then again, I have no idea why I'm doing any of this. Like, it's just I'm letting it move however it wants to move, and apparently I'm going to come back around like this, and what it's doing as it's doing this is it's activating different parts of my muscles. So it's not like I'm just sitting here against a wall and just kind of stretching it, or it's not like I'm I can stretch it in different ways. Like there's a whole lot of angles I can do on the wall and stretch. But it's different when I'm allowing it to be in, like, obviously against something, there's a plane that just kind of stopped it, and right here it's kind of free ranged. However, sometimes it's good to be against something like this at a wall and just kind of, you know, feel into it. And I'm putting some pressure down right through here, down, so the direction of is down like that. So I'm pushing back into kind of my shoulder capsule there, and feeling that and seeing how that changes things. And so it's good sometimes to have props to support you, and things like that. So kind of when you're looking at like just letting your body do whatever it wants, sometimes it is like, oh man, I just need to get on the ground and like you know, and let my body kind of move around and do whatever it wants to do. And sometimes it's, oh, you know what would feel really good is if I got into like the prayer position or something like that. Or it might feel really good if I just you know, just sat down and then let my body kind of rock into whatever position it wants to go into. And sometimes it's good to do this in the morning, sometimes it's good to do in the evening. It kind of depends on what feels best for you. Sometimes like I get up in the morning and I kind of do like this little intuitive movement stretching kind of stuff that I've been showing you, and it kind of just wakes me up in the morning. Sometimes I do it after like a long day at work and I'm just like, oh man, like all my muscles kind of ache and I feel really like I did a whole lot of stuff today, and you know, I might have like some back pain or something like that. And so like at the end of the day I might just consciously think about that. So oh, if I had some back pain, I might actually put my hand there so that my body knows that I this is the area that I want to work on. And so, and then moving with that and seeing where it wants to go, and I'm just letting my body kind of tell me how it wants to release itself, versus like, well, how do I release this? How do I do that? And how do what stretch do I need? What thing like that? Like those are all like good things to know. Like my background being in athletic training, so like rehab and so doing stretches and having you know, exercises that target specific muscles in specific ways is all good and it's great and everything. But sometimes like I get a lot more out of doing these little tiny movements where I'm activating just pieces of the muscle, versus like, you know, if I want to, you know, build up my quad muscle, or if I want to build up some other muscle, like doing the exercise that specifically targets that muscle in one plane. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's good, but sometimes listening to your body and like, I really want to work on this today. And then your body, and just like let your body do whatever it wants and see what happens, and trusting that your body is going to lead you in a direction that is helpful. So kind of also keep in mind, you know, like sometimes I get into places where I'm, you know, literally like on my head. So, you know, watching out for how much you're actually ready for, whatnot. Like you don't want to, like, just be mindful of the positions that you get in so that you're not actually hurting yourself. You don't want to like force yourself into any position as well. You don't want to torque it so you end up tearing something. Your body is definitely not telling you to do that. So being calm and in a more meditative mode also will help. So again, if we go back to I think it was last week, it might have been earlier this week, where I was talking about the craniosacral rhythm and how your bones, especially the paired bones, you'll notice they kind of go in and out at a 4 to 6 second rate. And when it does this, it's like your body's normal rhythm of the spinal fluid flowing from your head down to your sacrum. And then when you stop it, it gets you in a more meditative and receptive mode. So you might go back and check out that video if you're unsure what I'm talking about at the moment. But I think that's about all we have time for today, so I'm going to leave it here, and I will see you next time. Again, you can check out all of my other videos on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at Somato Enlightenment. Have a great day.